Welcome back to Whispers in the Woods. I'm Thomas Kennedy. Today is March 29th, 2026. Again, just picking up exactly where I left off from last time. It's gonna be part of a little special. And I'm really trying to get through this one today. I'm trying to get through the rest of it. Again, this is the broader picture type thing. But where I left off from last time. Okay. When I was at home, this in-between time before I entered the Veterans Court program, I was in my head a lot, between the gang stalking and also trying to formulate a plan for moving forward. I was miserable, to say the least. A lot of questions came up in my mind, but really this one question that came up again and again is, who are these people and what the fuck do they want from me? And why are they coming up against me? Those are the questions that always plague my mind. There can be a lot of anger that rises to the surface, within this time, but I never let it take control of me. I think that's the important part to remember, that if you are a targeted individual, especially in this way, especially people going through great lengths with a collection and dozens of fucking people, from all walks of life, older people, younger people, corrupt cops, corrupt judges, corrupt lawyers, government officials. Don't let anger be your only driving force. At this time, I stopped exercising. I had no appetite. Wanting to know more, I contacted the VA in Pasco, and they told me that I would have no problem getting transferred from Fort Myers once I entered the program, which is one of the main things that I was concerned about. I was concerned about that because I didn't want to be away from the kids. That was the only thing that I gave a shit about. And they told me that it would be absolutely no problem, that once I entered the program, I could simply get transferred to Pasco, which makes complete sense, doesn't it, to somebody from the outside looking in. Within these months, I never attended court. I just kept finding out from my handler that there was another continuance. And that's how this thing just kept going. Continuance, month after month. Stephen Wetter was the individual that was falsely representing me and never had my best interest at hand, because he's corrupt and a complete fraud. This is a guy that I'm going to come for. I'm going to come for very hard. I'm going to take everything from him. I'm going to make sure that he can't practice law again. I don't care what I have to do. I'm going to make sure that that dude sees the inside of his cell. If he doesn't, I'm going to make sure that he can't practice law and do this shit to anybody else. Because I know within my mind that this motherfucker knew exactly what was going on. And he's corrupt. He's a corrupt piece of garbage. When I entered the Veterans Court program, I was denied a transfer from the corrupt judge that was in charge of the program, and also working in conjunction with the corrupt lawyer, Stephen Wetter, as well as the district attorney. So the district attorney, I'm assuming, is corrupt as well. Again, this is judicial abuse. It's abuse within the judicial system itself. They're all working in cahoots with each other against one person. And that's the main thing to really take away from a lot of this, is that all these fucking people that came from me, I'm one person. And all these fucking people form groups to come up against me. One person. And you still couldn't fucking take me down. It just kind of speaks to the incompetence that exists within every single one of these groups, and how corrupt you are. Move this a little bit. I worked off my 100 hours of community service through a nonprofit that I handpicked out of a list. I spoke of this list the other day. This is a list that's handed to you by your probation officer. One of the things that I did a little bit of research on was how you can serve these community service hours, these 100 hours, you know what I mean? You can serve it within the jail itself, and again, that acts as a recruiting tactic by the Space Force and these illegal government programs. They make you sign NDAs. So these people are sworn to secrecy. Once you enter that shit and you enter that space, you're given a lot of hidden knowledge and hidden information. A lot of these secret government programs go on within that jail. Something that I knew of, something that I detected right away, and it was not a way that I was going to serve my community service hours. This work that I did, you know, as far as the community service goes, it involved painting her home, installing cabinets, pressure washing, as well as running numerous errands. She was a good lady, man, as well as her husband. Like I said, it was a non-profit that what she did was adopt dogs. She adopted dogs. She did foster work for dogs to find them homes. You know, if they had some type of mental issues, she would take them in, kind of heal them in a way, and then try to find a good home for them. You know, which is something that I believed in, something that I still believe in. You know, and I think it was amazing, and it was the main reason why I chose that nonprofit to serve my community service hours, and I'm completely grateful for it. You know what I mean? Like I said, she was a really good lady. You know, her husband was cool as shit too. And yeah, I have nothing but respect for them. They were good people. For the duration of the year, I worked at a window company, attended every court-ordered group, while at the same time navigating around the spies sent in to monitor me within these groups, as well as within the courtroom. Never failing or missing any court-ordered drug test, submitted my DNA to a probation officer as ordered by the court. So this is something that I'm going to elaborate on a little bit. So this was one of the requirements when entering the program, is that you have to submit your DNA, which is quite interesting to me, right? Because they had already illegally obtained my DNA right when I entered that jail. They do this through, it's almost like a manipulation tactic, you know, in a way. You enter the jail and they swab your mouth. You could take this as a, you know, you could think that it's a COVID test, you know what I mean? But it's not. It's not a COVID test. It's a fucking DNA swab. You know, they take your DNA illegally. There was no consent given. They never told me this. They simply have you sign a piece of paper after the fact, after they do this, which is completely illegal and completely corrupt. Again, this is part of the work that they do within the Fort Myers jail. That would be jail number 1 that this occurred in. But again, corruption, man. Corruption. And this is part of the exposure process. This is why this shit needs to happen, because this is not, I'm not the only one. This is probably continuing to happen at the behest of the United States government and the illegal motherfuckers that are involved in this. But it's funny because this submission of DNA, this illegal obtainment of my DNA, it makes me wonder what they did with all this shit, you know, with my DNA. Because once they have your DNA, they could do whatever the fuck they want with it. This is something that I thought about in the past. They could do whatever the hell they want with it. You know, they're already corrupt as shit. They could plant evidence. They could put your DNA on shit that you've never even been around. Like, think about that for a second. Think about how illegal and corrupt that really is. Think about the amount of abuse. Government officials abusing their power. The judicial system abusing their power in order to plant evidence. I mean, that's just a potential thing that could have happened. I mean, I can only assume the worst at this point, you know, because I've fucking uncovered so much of this corruption, so much of this illegal activity that's going on within Fort Myers. I don't trust any of those fucking cops that serve in positions. Which is funny, because I always support cops. Like, there's such a need for good law enforcement out there. And I think there are really good people that exist within this world that want to make a difference, and in that way, you know, by serving in that public service position. But when you are part of a system that is completely broken and corrupt, and you just roger the fuck out, and you take people's DNA through illegal means, like, you're part of the fucking problem. You're part of the fucking problem. They fingerprinted me, handprinted me, palm prints, which is funny because the FBI have already had my fingerprints ever since I joined the military at a very young age. So that's the part that kind of, you know, warps my, again, this is more things that they have that are part of you, right? Fingerprints, handprints, palm prints, that they can utilize to plant evidence wherever the fuck they want to. Again, this is just something that I'm thinking about that they could have done. It's very potential, you know, especially considering the amount of corruption that's within this fucking terrible city. It's not just this city. It's cities all over Florida, which raises the question for me is, like, what does the governor know about this? What does Governor DeSantis know about this? If he knows about any of these programs that exist, I'm gonna fucking tear him down too. Like, I'm not gonna leave any stone unturned. I'm really not. I'm coming for every single person that was involved or knew about any of these programs that were going down. All right, continuing forward. The digital manipulation the entire year. So the entire year that I was within this program, I lived in an RV park, right? Everything was temporary. You know, in my opinion, everything was temporary. I can live any which way for a year. You know, I could do that shit standing on my head. It's no problem to me. You know, I can live in complete fucking misery for a year. It's just a year. You know, that's what I kept telling myself. But this digital manipulation, you know, again, affecting, they hack your phone. They hack all your devices. They're inside your Wi-Fi. There was a trailer that was right next to mine. This was a surveillance trailer that they utilized multiple occasions. I heard them talking about me one day when they were monitoring me. I had worked on a Saturday. This is just giving a little bit of an example. I'm going a little bit off topic, but I was working on a Saturday. I don't have to work Saturdays. It's just something that I chose to do to keep myself busy. But I worked until around noon or something like that. I had to go submit a drug test. When I come back and I pull up, these fucking people are talking about me and asking, these were their exact words. I think he forgot. Talking about the drug test that I'm supposed to take that day on a Saturday, because it was the first one that we got. You're supposed to have 2 a week. That's kind of normal. This time was the first time that they required it to be 3 within a week. I didn't forget. So I went and did my drug test. But again, these people were inside the trailer speaking of me openly. They try to be covert, but they're not. I see right through them, you know. And that's the thing with the Space Force. They are this self-proclaimed invisible front line of America. They are nothing but a bunch of fucking dirtbags to me. They are the invisible corruption within America and a tool used for domestic terrorism. That's all they are to me. They are fucking lowlifes. So part of the digital manipulation, getting back on topic, right? Part of the digital manipulation, and this is a tactic that they used time and time again. So they want to steer your decision-making process. So in my hunt for a job, I used Indeed as a tool. Indeed was a tool that I used to target a job in which I can carry out this Veterans Court program with ease and not have any issues being able to step away from the position that I held to do all these ridiculous things that they require within the Veterans Court program. One thing that they did was they manipulated my Indeed job posts. You know what kept coming up time and time again was applications for the FBI, applications for the Space Force, applications for private contracting gigs overseas, which this is highly prevalent, and it's important to note because this is something that my handler wished for me to do and had openly told me that she wanted me to do for a while, you know. And there's something that she doesn't understand, and a lot of people don't understand, is that I've already fucking been there. I've already fucking been there. Maybe not a private contracting gig, but I already know what it's gonna be like. And once they see my talents, skills, and abilities in that way, they would put me on a fucking hay truck and I would be killing people left and right. And that's not necessarily anything that I wanted to do. You know, so one thing that I told the judge, because she had known a lot of information that she shouldn't have about me. But one thing that she said, and she spoke of to me, was, she said to me one day, she's like, oh, so you have a lot of skills. And I'm like, yeah, I have a lot of skills. But I also said this to her, right? And I'm sure this is I'm sure this was recorded. I said, just because you're good at something doesn't mean that you should do it. And doesn't mean that that's the way that I'm gonna proceed. Those are my words, you know? I have a lot of things that I could do. It doesn't mean that I should do them. These motherfuckers could never affect my decision-making process in that way. And they never would, and they never could, because I saw through the digital manipulation very early. But again, you take it with a grain of salt, you know? As the year was coming to an end, I got told by the person at the trailer park that they were terminating my lease early. Let me elaborate on this a little bit. So yeah, the contract was supposed to lead me right to the end of the Veterans Court program. That way it could be a smooth transition and I could just fucking pick up, hitch up, and go home. You know, that's how it was supposed to go. But through manipulation by outside sources that I don't really know who the fuck they are, you know, I can only suspect that it's in part the Space Force and my handler, corrupt cops, shit like that. They terminated my lease early. I thought in my head, well, that sucks, but it shouldn't be any problem. You know, I have another month or two here that I'll carry out, and I'll live in my vehicle. You know, it's not a big deal. I could do that. That's doable. You know, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel. I get to see my fucking kids. I get to go home. And that was it, you know. So I thought, you know. Within living in my vehicle, this would be around the time that January hit. Once January hit, that's when that veil was lifted, right? I identified who at least one of my targeters were, which was Candace Kane. She was, again, the person who I refer to as my handler. I was very open about this. Within groups. The Space Force heard this. The corrupt FBI, I'm sure, heard this. And they ran with that shit, and they used me. Let me elaborate about a conversation that I had. So, I said how I was open in groups about this whole thing, the veil being lifted, you know. And it was really me connecting dots that existed previously that I just I didn't see. It took me almost the entire year, you know, to piece together and connect the dots, but I did. And there was a point where I had a conversation. I was in a Walmart parking lot, and I was talking to my buddy Nick. I'm sure you people know who you are if you've been surveilling me. Nick would be pretty much the only friend that I've had. He's a friend that I've had since around the 4th grade, you know. But I had an open conversation with him. One of the first open conversations that I've had with anyone throughout that entire year. But I told him that my communications were being monitored, that I was being surveilled, and it was through these illegal wiretaps. Again, part of corruption. It was through these illegal wiretaps. I had openly discussed the spies that were sent in by the Space Force and the monitoring spirits that were involved within the VA, as well as all the other groups. I went in a little bit more detail as far as how ridiculous these people were when coming up with topics of conversation. These people within groups would talk about crazy, wild shit, you know, like meth and fucking hardcore drug use and just all these ridiculous stories that I'd never fed into. It all just seemed very fabricated, you know, it's very fabricated. And it seemed that way for a reason. It's because it was fabricated. You know, these people are paid to do this shit. It's fucking bad acting 101. You know, it's what these people specialize in, supposedly what they specialize in. I was also open about a very particular event that occurred, and it was the day that I left for Fort Myers. So they had multiple Bluetooth devices in my home, which I already detected. It was through this it was a program that I downloaded to detect, you know, anti-spyware and shit like that. But it detected a bunch of Bluetooth devices that I'm not familiar with that were within my home. One of these devices was a light bulb, right? So they can surveil you and monitor you through this light bulb that they connected within my bathroom. So a very private area within my bathroom. But they can record you, you know, video surveil you. They had multiple other Bluetooth devices. I couldn't find a lot of these other ones, but one of them was labeled as Beehive. The other one was labeled as Refrigerato. So I'm assuming somewhere in my fridge to monitor. Listen, I have no idea. I don't really give a fuck, but it's just something that I detected. Another thing that they do is coax cables. They will replace all your coax cables once they gain access to your home. You know, you can find this out by simply looking at the markings on your coax cables. It'll have aerospace markings, not normal at all. This is how they can have set up like a CCTV, you know, to consistently monitor you. Again, creating a Truman Show out of your life, you know, creating a fucking Truman Show out of your life. Highly illegal. Yeah, highly illegal. But one thing that I detected was somebody was in my fucking attic. Somebody was in my attic. How did I know this? I heard them. Number one, very faint whispers. Very faint whispers started off with that. And then the second part to this was that I was standing in between. I was in my bedroom, you know, right at the door where it kind of enters my living room. And as I was standing there, a piece of popcorn fell from the ceiling and I heard shuffling around in the attic. So I had my son with me at the time, who I thought was my son. I didn't want to do anything, you know, while he was in the home. My first instinct was to grab my pistol, shoot through the ceiling, and fucking eliminate the target, because I knew exactly where he was above my head at that point. Again, I didn't want to do this. My son was there. I didn't want to scare him. So I waited. I waited for my handler to get home. This person, she had been watching me. She had been watching me. She already knew that I detected something right when she walked through the door. Her energy was completely off. I knew that right away. She was part of this. She was part of this. She was working in conjunction with the Space Force. She knew that there was someone in my attic surveilling me illegally. I immediately grabbed my pistol. I told her exactly what was going on, which she already fucking knew. But she was, you know, almost questioning, but not questioning, pretending to be a little taken back, but not. You know what I mean? She was just lying. She was lying to my face. She was playing in my fucking face, and I knew it right away. I grabbed my pistol right away. I climbed into the attic, and right when I do, I hear from the other end. They were on the opposite end of the house. The opposite end of the house. They said, there was one person whispering, "Can they get over to me? Can they get over to me?" Yeah, motherfucker, I can get over to you. But I had to climb through a bunch of fucking beams to get there. So one thing that I did see was a silhouette of a fucking person, right? But I didn't have PID, so I couldn't shoot. I was waiting for PID, and I was very much gonna fucking eliminate this person, this target that was within my attic illegally. By the time that I had gotten over to halfway, again, had my pistol oriented the entire time towards this target, saw the silhouette move once I kind of created a space to where I was able to shoot, where there was no beams obstructing my line of sight. That person shifted to where they were then fucking clouded by the cross braces within the home, so the 2x4s that run kind of at an angle. They exited somewhere where I did not see, climbed on the roof, jumped from the roof across the fence. I heard them drop on the ground, and then they fucking took off running. I heard this all from my attic. Now, this is important to note, as well as the noises that I heard afterwards. So it took me a minute to get from one end of the house to the other through the attic, you know, because of the way that you have to maneuver. Not only that, I had my pistol on me, I had a fucking flashlight. Again, these are things that I had to navigate, but it took me quite a while to get over to the other side. But once I heard this person jump off the roof onto the fucking ground and then take off running, shortly after that, within about a 10 to 15 second time frame, a car started up. So this vehicle had loud pipes. I didn't see this vehicle, you know. I didn't see this vehicle, but it was a loud vehicle, you know. It was, they had exhaust. It had to be some type of Mustang, Camaro, one of those type of vehicles. But it started off and it took off at an extremely rapid rate. This person was scared. There was a lot of fear within them. They were found out, you know. They were found out and they were fucking terrified. Again, I had to make my way back again from one end of the house to the other. By the time I did this, that person was fucking long gone because, again, I heard the vehicle take off. So within this time frame, I got down. The handler, she was supposed to wait at the stairs of the attic. She did not. She was nowhere to be found. She was all the way at the other end of the house. So again, working in coordination, you know, working in coordination with these fucking people. I immediately went down. I looked towards the gate of the community because you can see it from down the street where my house is, outside the driveway. Nowhere to be found. I was irate, man. I was irate. I was completely upset. Candace just kept feeding me a bunch of fucking bullshit, and it was just irritating me even more. And I ended up leaving shortly after that for Fort Myers. I had to leave. I had to be at work the next day, and I had like a 2.5, 3 hour drive that I had to partake in. In which, when I did that drive, I was followed the entire way. You know, I was harassed and surveilled the entire way, by multiple means, multiple people, multiple individuals. I tested this. I drove all the way to the Bayside Bridge, followed, and then I doubled back just to make sure that I was being followed again. And I was. I stopped at a store, tested out again, see who was following me. I openly saw who was following me, detected them right away, and then they set up checkpoints along my route from where I lived all the way to Fort Myers. This is how these people fucking operate, man. Like, it's complete garbage, you know. It's such a waste of government resources. Highly illegal. Let's try to move on. So I didn't prepare anything moving forward, but I'm really trying to get through this today. So let me try to push through a little bit. So getting back on topic. I was forced into homelessness, you know, living out of my car. But again, the veil was lifted, right? I had this conversation with Nick. After this conversation had occurred, right the day after this conversation had occurred, This is when the digital manipulation hit a all new high. All new high. This is when I started receiving spiritual videos within YouTube and all this stuff. And I was open about this as well. I remember, you know, in the coming days, you know, being in a particular group and saying, you know, I'm getting these spiritual videos, but I'm kind of enjoying them. You know, I was kind of enjoying them, you know, at a certain point. So they were trying to manipulate me into making me believe that I was going to be attaining some type of justice, you know, in some form, moving forward. They also use artificial intelligence as a way to manipulate you. So anything you say, you know, whether it be recorded or through a video that you make, they will take note of that. They will also give you hints, you know what I mean? There was a video that was made, I'm assuming through artificial intelligence, where they depicted the exact event that I described over the phone with Nick. It was an individual clearing their attic with a pistol, you know, because that person detected, this is a very descriptive, you know, it's a very visual representation that you are going to be attaining justice for the illegal activity that was done for you. This was what they wanted me to think. This is how the Space Force operates. I imagine this is exactly how the NSA operates as well as the Defense Intelligence Agency, because I've picked up on them in the past as well. I have no doubt that they're probably, you know, partly involved in this. But yeah, they would do that consistently, you know, on a daily. You know, if there's something that I described, they would immediately make some type of video that was artificially made, you know, to try to give me some type of a sign. You know, sometimes, again, there's a lot of spiritual traps, you know, within digital manipulation. There's a lot of illegal activity that goes on that the United States population doesn't really know about. But these are things that are actually happening within government organizations. This is a way that they completely harness your energy, you know. And it drew my attention, and my attention completely changed, you know, from working to then paying attention to attaining justice for myself. And through that self-advocation for myself, I was continuing to reveal more and more and more and more information that I knew. And these government agencies were using it for their own self-gain. So these would be, and this would probably be an individual at the top of a fucking organization, receiving information, utilizing it for himself to then go ahead and make a name for himself. Again, just stealing your intellectual property and the things that you discovered, because let's be honest, I did this shit. I revealed this corruption, not you motherfuckers. So you better fucking get real with who you are, because you're a fucking nobody, in my opinion. You're a fucking nobody. You're a thief. You steal intellectual property. You steal people's stories. You then try to pretend to fucking be them. Like, you motherfuckers are low level. You're fucking low level scumbags. That's all you are, and that's all you'll ever be. Let me try to get through this, you know, because I want to be fucking done with this broader type picture. I get digital manipulation, right? This digital manipulation continued for the entire year, you know, that exists. After I exited the Veterans Court program, I continued to work in Fort Myers for a little bit. The digital manipulation kept going, and they keep giving hints that you're going to be attaining justice tomorrow, the next day, the next month. You know what I mean? That's what they perpetuate. They perpetuate false hope within you. And that's something that I clinged on to, you know, was this sense of false hope. Spiritual traps, you know, that you have to be aware of, that these people use as a tool. They will manipulate your faith. They will use your faith as a tool almost against you. But it's okay. It's something that they can't take away from me. My faith exists within me for a fucking reason. And that's something that they can't take away from me. And hope, my hope for the future is just to attain justice. You know, order, balance, truth to come out, to come to light, for all these people to be exposed for exactly who the fuck they are. which is low-level scumbags. So this happened throughout the entire year. Now, when I eventually left Fort Myers, I had it's like I couldn't breathe. It's like I couldn't breathe there. You know what I mean? They kept sending people into my workplace to try to manipulate me, to try to come at me in different ways. So I know I just needed to leave. You know, I needed to bounce, and I wasn't going to go back home because, let's be honest, I'm not going to go back to a handler who was completely working, you know, with these fucking people since the beginning and was part of all the suffering that I endured. Part of the dumb shit that I had to go through in the Veterans Court program, as well as a lot of other things that I haven't even gotten to yet. But I knew I needed to leave. I didn't have a bunch of resources. You know, I didn't really have a plan. I just knew I wanted to leave. So I picked up. I drove first to Texas. Then I went to Colorado. I stayed in Colorado for, I don't know, a couple days, maybe a week or something like that. Again, gang stalked, harassed, digital manipulation the entire fucking time. And then I finally ended up in Billings, Montana. You know, I was in Billings, Montana, running out of resources. Detected that there was, and this could be true or not true. This is something that they made me want to believe, was that there was a tracker on my vehicle. I don't know, I don't have any proof because I couldn't find a tracker on my vehicle, so I don't really know the validity in that, but it's something that they wanted me to believe. They do this through a lot of spiritual videos, tarot readings, these fake tarot readers that come up against you. They work against you. They'll give you false information, or, you know, you get these hints from the fucking universe and shit like that. It's just a tool that they use. But either way, I didn't want to take a chance. I dumped the vehicle. I had gotten another phone. I left the other phone that I knew was compromised within the vehicle, as well as the laptop that I had. I picked up and I just started walking. I didn't know where I was going. I tell you the truth, I thought I was just going to be walking to my death. You know, walking until I just fucking ran out of gas. And that was it. You know, I ended up meeting this cop. This cop kind of stopped me, and he was asking me, you know, some questions. Anyways, he ended up, without getting too much in detail, he ended up taking me to Darby, Montana, which is where I've been. You know, it's where I've been for pretty much the past year. And within this past year, there's been a lot of healing, a lot of growing. You know what I mean? And I'm grateful for every fucking bit of it. I'm grateful for every bit of it. You know, when I think where I'm at right now, I'm just grateful, you know? You would imagine that you would be bitter or some shit like that. I mean, I'm a person, I don't have much, you know? I don't have much of anything, you know, within my life, especially as far as people or support goes. I have none of that. And again, the gang stalking, the harassment, it continued. It followed me from Florida all the way to Montana. You know, when I was in Billings, there was a time where I was at a park. I gravitate to parks and outdoor areas to try to gain some type of peace. You know what I mean? Some type of seclusion. And followed all along the way gang stalkers, people taking pictures of me with long lenses as I walk through park in Billings. You know, it's just one example, but this is part of the harassment that I'm speaking of, and it followed me all the way from Florida to Montana. So this is widespread. This isn't something that is kind of sheltered or held within one geographical location. This is widespread throughout America, and it is government manipulation. It's corruption, you know, in its truest form. It's fucking evil. You know, it's evil. For so many people to come up against one person, I guess it speaks to how ineffective they are, you know, because nothing that you did, all the spiritual traps, all the harassment, the assault of multiple kinds, the torture programs, none of it worked. None of it worked. And I stand here today knowing that when I move forward, I'm going to tear your organization apart. I'm going to tear the Space Force apart. And I'm going to come after any other individual who stood up against me on any level, in any way. I'm going to come for you. I really am. I'm going to come for you. And I'm going to make sure you suffer. Because that's balance. That's balance. And that's justice. And justice is something that I definitely fucking deserve. I should have been free from this shit a long time ago. And I'm still not. I'm still here fighting. And I guess that's one thing that you people never understood about me, is that I will always continue to fight. You know, you might go through these points in time, you know, within your life where you feel a little bit fucking defeated. You know, you feel like everything that you're doing is just kind of pointless. You know, that it's falling on deaf ears. But for me, it doesn't matter. The fight matters. And I'm going to continue to fight. I'm going to continue to fight, and there's nothing that you can do to stop me. You can't shut me up. I'm going to fucking destroy you people, and I'm going to come at you however I have to. However I fucking have to. If you think I'm scared of you fucking people, boy, oh boy, do you have something else coming towards you. Because I'm not. Because I'm not. None of this shit that you people did was warranted on any level, no matter what you fucking say. You can come up with however many fabrications and lies you want to. It doesn't matter. I'll knock them all down, and I will fucking tear them apart, just like I'm going to tear you apart. And anybody within the judicial system that has fucking prevented me from getting justice, don't think that I'm not going to come for you in a legal way. I'm going to come for you. All of you fucking people, I'm going to come for you. And this isn't just for me. This isn't just for me. This is for everybody out there who was ever fucking targeted by your fucking bullshit and your faggot ass group running around, harassing people, fucking ruining people's lives. You think that shit's okay? You think it's a fucking game? You know what I picked up on the other day? A prolonged initiation. Not initiated to you fucking people at all. I'll never fucking work for you fucking people. You people are scumbags. I will send you a bullet before I sign a fucking contract with you people. You know, sometimes you gotta breathe after something like that, but it's good to get it out. You know, it feels good. I spoke of this before, but this is a fucking therapy session for me. But it's way more than that at this point. Anyways, this has been Whispers in the Woods. This was a very broad account of my experiences over the past few years. And I hope some people out there can gain something from it. If anything, I just hope you gain a perspective shift as far as all the corruption that's happening within America. Because we as the American population do need to wake up to that. We need to wake up so that we can inspire change within this country. Change that eventually will lead to growth and prosperity and peace. But in order to achieve that peace, justice needs to be had.